This scene is one of the most iconic in horror cinema, yet it nearly scuppered the entire Scream project, as the producers found it was ridiculous and they thought they had to cancel the entire shoot. Today I'm going to tell you the story of a movie that shocked the world when it was first released, and now it's a cult classic, Scream. Let's get into some set secrets. It all started in 1996 when horror master director Wes Craven and screenwriter Kevin Williamson teamed up to create a revolutionary horror film. The script for what will become a 90s cinema banger is quite simple at first glance. A California town, a group of young people, a slasher-style killer on the loose, and it quickly becomes clear that it can only be one of them. So who? This Agatha Christie atmosphere with an American high school twist will give our team, including Wes Craven, a run for their money. After all, he's the director of Freddy Krueger series and The Hills Have Eyes. Craven at this time was beyond the master of horror, hands down. The team's heading to California. A certain Harvey Weinstein had suggested Canada to save $1 million, but Craven refused because he wanted the atmosphere to be 100% American. And so it will be. Shot on location in Santa Rosa, California, the houses the high schools used are all traditional US buildings. They kick off shooting with the scene that clearly made the biggest impression on the US, the opening. Drew Barrymore's at home, the phone rings, and a dark voice speaks to her. Intrigued, she begins to play along until a line that changes everything. I want to know who I'm looking at.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
The killer is nearby. And after a chase, she meets her tragic death. And this scene, it's just revolutionary. Not only did it take 5 days to shoot, but Drew Barrymore is the most famous actress in the cast. She's on the poster. Everybody is waiting for her as the leading role. And yet, she dies after 8 minutes. The whole audience is completely shocked. So she actually had the leading role in the first place. However, she had to shoot another movie, so she didn't have any time to be in Scream anymore. Her acting has been widely praised by critics. Wes Craven is actually said to have told her really sad stories about animals being mistreated to accentuate her sadness and tears so that she cries more and it's more authentic. And as a vegan person, that would 100% work on me. A little fun fact, but the house phone hadn't been disconnected, and by the time Drew called 911, she'd screamed at a real person on the other end. If you had Drew Barrymore crying on the phone in 1996, hi there! In this scene, it's Wes Craven in the suit when we see Drew Barrymore hitting the murderer with the phone. What's actually crazy is that this iconic scene didn't convince the production at all. It was shot first, so the footage was quickly shown to the producers, and they thought the mask looked absolutely ridiculous. Doubted the film would scare anybody, and honestly thought of dumping Craven from the entire project. In fact, the first scene in Scream has become the most eagerly awaited moment in every single film. That running gag, you know something crazy is going to happen, and you wonder, who will the first victim be? It's almost an honorary title, first victim in Scream. It's something you definitely want to put on your resume. During production, something completely crazy happened. The actors were actually given mock scripts so that when they were acting, they had no idea who the real killer was. The scene entitled Scene 118 is considered the most difficult in the film, and indeed, one of the most longest and complex in horror cinema. The characters are almost all in the same house, and we have a succession of key scenes. Shooting takes several days, intercepted with physically and mentally intense scenes. Also, special effects makeup is needed for the fake wounds. Their blood-stained clothing are not changed for over the course of a few days, so that means the stains are remaining and they smelled terrible after 4 days. Plus, the scenes take place during the evening, so the crew has to shoot everything at night, and apparently they were shooting from dusk until dawn. It just must be so exhausting. So much so that the crew had I Had Survived Scene 18 t-shirts made. On the fun fact side, 200 liters, which is about 6,762 fluid ounces of fake blood, were required for the shoot. Also, Wes Craven makes a really great cameo as Freddy Krueger. On its release, the film did very well. The low budget of $14 million resulted in the box office receipts of $173 million. So that is about 10 times more. To give you an idea, in the same year, Jumanji cost $65 million and made $264 million. And Tim Burton's Mars Attack cost $70 million and made $100 million. With these figures, Scream and its hero Ghostface becomes horror cinema's greatest slasher. Let's get into some inspiration. But how did they manage to revive outdated slashers? Because this style was old-fashioned when the film was released. The killers were parodies of themselves. The success is largely due to the main character, Ghostface. And can we just start by talking about the iconic mask inspired by Munch's Scream? It was found at the bottom of a box by Wes Craven during a location scout. It's crazy to think that this 90s icon was just literally rotting away in an attic. When he saw it, Craven had what you might call a crush. It was the perfect mask for the movie, compared to others like Jason from Friday the 13th or Mike Myers from Halloween. He's a very expressive mask. He cries and he screams at the same time, kind of a bit like his victims. Secondly, Ghostface has a real personality. We were used to the mechanics of traditional silent slashers, and we weren't really afraid of them anymore because we'd seen all of the movies. And in Scream, we used that. Nobody's afraid of horror movies anymore. Everyone has seen them, and unfortunately, so has the killer.
Yes! Predictable.
He puts pressure on his victims, letting them know that he's unpredictable. He's the one who knows how these victims are going to act because he has the traditional survival codes of the iconic movies. Here we have an ode to the horror movies Carrie, Halloween. We've lost count of all the references. By bringing in actors who appeal to young people such as Courtney Cox from Friends, Neve Campbell from Party of Five, and Sarah Michelle Gellar, who did Scream 2 and 3 and is the heroine of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they've completely modernized the film enormously. They've made it more glamorous, also making you kind of want to be a part of the cast, where just before it was a second-rate movie. But how did this screenwriter come to create such a character? Well, Kevin Williamson's Scream screenwriter was traumatized by the Gainesville murders. In 1990, a man murdered 5 students with knives in just 4 days. I will not go into the gory details, but the mutilations were very violent, just like in Scream. Once arrested, he declared a frightening motive. He wanted to become a superstar like the serial killer Ted Bundy. This story would leave the mark on Kevin Williamson. Ugh. Just a few months later, he returned home one evening to find one of his windows open. He just is scared, immediately thinking that his house had been broken into, influenced by his fear and the story of this unpredictable killer. He declares to write. He wrote an 18-page script about a young girl alone in a big house stalked by a nearby killer on the phone. A movie that does not die. The scenario is highly satirical. We make fun of slashers and scare the public at the same time. Originally, when Kevin Williamson had anticipated a trilogy, a 3-part scenario, but the success of the film and its merchandising proves that Scream Saga is not ready to die. The film is saved by one mechanism. The killer changes each time and anyone can hide under that mask. I mean, it's genius because it allows for constant renewal, and with each new film, we can't wait to see who would slip through Ghostface's skin. In the script for the following installments, they created a brilliant plot. The murders fascinated the world, and a film called Stab, which resembled Scream, was inspired by the murders and become such a massive hit. Some fans of Stab and the murderer Ghostface go mad and are willing to commit murder just to become famous. And they continue to feature actors who have been super popular with the young people over the years. The presence of Jenna Ortega, known for her role as Wednesday Addams, has also helped to appeal to the younger generation. The films are almost at successes, even with the 2 most recent with their low budgets of $24 million and $35 million, grossing over $138 million and $168 million at the box office. But something very strange and chilling happened around the movie. It may even be a prediction. I've just told you that in the saga, some killers were simply fans of the film Stab and the Woodsboro Massacre, who went on to become famous. Well, in real life, the movie Scream has also inspired a series of killers around the world. In January 1998, 16-year-old Mario Padilla and his cousin, that's 14 years old, stabbed Mario's mother 45 times. The teenagers said that they were inspired by Scream 1 and 2. They even wanted to buy each other a costume of the film's killer and a voice changer like Ghostface. Unfortunately, this was not an isolated incident. In 1999, a similar incident occurred. A 13-year-old child was attacked by 2 teenagers who were nicknamed Scream Attackers. They claimed to have watched the film shortly before the attack, and drawings of the Scream killer were found. In Europe, a teenager attacked her parents wearing a disguise. In total, there have been a dozen murders and assaults linked to the movies. Some hold the movies responsible, and others blame it on an illness. Do you think the movies can be so harmful? I find it rather chilling that the film's inspired by reality, then the reality inspires the film. then that film perhaps also re-inspires itself from these related facts. It's played a big part in mystifying the saga in any case, and it makes you wonder about the impact on pop culture that it can have on some people.